Good morning, gang. Happy Monday morning. Ever wonder why you prep? I mean, seriously, when you stop back and go, why am I really doing this? Is all this gloom and doom possible? Yeah, and then you look at what happened over the weekend, what happened the end of the last week to the world economy. Yeah, it is. Give you just one example. JP Morgan came out over the weekend and said now there is a 60% chance we go into a recession. Okay. There is not a single Wall Street analyst who likes these tariffs. Okay. Not that Wall Street analysts are all that accurate. Like I said, if you want a job where you got to be right 50% of the time, be a stock market analyst, be a weatherman. That's it, okay? You'll still keep your job even though you're wrong half the time. But are we in the Great Reset? Not Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum idea of the Great Reset. Are we now in a Great Reset of the world economy? We might be. I mean, it's one of these scenarios where the American mentality, let's put it this way, the lack of patience that Americans have could come back and bite them in the ass. We are all in for, we've been trained in this, of instant gratification. I mean, and think of any sort of person that you can think of. You want something, you don't have the money for it, put it on a credit card. Buy now, pay later. We'll finance you, right? I mean, how many times have you heard that? The first words out of somebody's, well, it's a little out of my budget right now. Well, we can finance you. I mean, it's like, that's instant there. And people are like, oh, really? I can have it now even though I don't have the money. Unfortunately, the governments of the world have gone on the same idea. Put it on the federal credit card. Buy now, pay later. We can finance you. And we all knew this was coming, that there was going to be a day where everybody had to pay the piper. We've heard the stories, kick the can down the road. We're mortgaging our grandkids' futures, right? You've heard all these terms. We knew it was coming, we just didn't know when. We might be there. Lots of stories all over the place, the pundits yesterday on the Sunday morning news shows, you name it, talking about our standard of living is going to go down. I hate to tell you this, our standard of living has been going down for 30 some odd years because of this. People just tried to finance their way out of it. That's going to run into a problem. There was an interesting piece that was put out over the weekend. And like communism, it works great on paper. Okay. Unfortunately, we all know communism doesn't work in the real world. But this was somebody's theory that people were going to be so scared of the stock market, the crypto market, the gold and silver market. I mean, all of them are down. I mean, even gold and silver is down. Okay. But this was an attempt by Trump to crush the stock market, to crush the investment market, which I find a real stretch, okay? But the reason was that everybody would start dumping money into treasuries, right? That, this was a flight to safety. Y'all know that term too. And where do people like to go? Usually, the market wisdom has always been people would go buy treasury bonds, treasury notes, treasury bills, whatever. You may own some, okay? There's a problem with this. The American public as a whole doesn't necessarily trust the Fed anymore, okay? We're not trusting the Treasury. So I don't think that would be a place they dump money. But that would, and you know what a treasury bond, a treasury bill, treasury note, whatever it is, you are loaning the government money. Just what we need to do. give them more money to go out and waste, and we're going to loan it to them. For some reason, I don't see that as realistic. Okay, but this is what's being talked about. The theory was then by pushing money into treasuries, that would force the Federal Reserve to slash interest rates. Trump wants them to cut interest rates, so this kind of makes sense. Jerome Powell's basically saying no. I'll give you my personal opinion, okay? Me personally. I do not see the Fed cutting rates in April. I do not see the Fed cutting rates in May. I'm just saying, okay? Then by doing that, that would weaken the dollar. Now, the dollar is already getting weaker. We are seeing the dollar index at around 102 as I'm recording this at about 5:30 this morning. And that's come down significantly. We haven't been here since before the election. Okay, so the dollar is the weakest it's been now in about 6 months. So look at this. I get the fact that they are trying to bring interest rates down, which bring mortgage rates down, bring credit card rates down, bring car payment, rates down, whatever it would. But then we go right back into the same situation that got us in all this trouble in the first place. Was free money, was easy credit, okay? Go back to everywhere since the end of 2008 and that whole disaster. And low interest rates were wonderful, right? Because companies could borrow money, people could borrow money, blah, 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 blah. But eventually you gotta pay the bills. And it's not a problem of access to cash. It's the problem that people had too much access to cash and now can't pay the bill. That's the problem. Look at the government. Perfect example. We borrowed $36 trillion. We can't afford to pay the bill. Hack off a whole bunch of zeros. And let's say you borrowed $36,000 to buy a car. And now you can't pay the bill. What happens? The repo guy shows up with a tow truck and hauls your car off. Well, go back to 36 trillion. What happens when the repo guy shows up to the U.S. government and says, you're out of business? That's literally what's going on. And we are all going to suffer from this in a lower, the entire United States, by a lower standard of living, because we're no longer going to be able to finance this extravagant lifestyle that we can't afford. Please tell me that you don't know somebody in your family, somebody in your neighborhood who's living beyond their means. I think we all do. I'm betting, though, there's a whole bunch of people that watch this channel that don't live beyond their means, that live within their means, because we saw this coming. We have gotten the stuff that we need to maintain a modest lifestyle within our budget to move along. This is why all those of us who paid down our mortgage, paid off our mortgage, paid off our cars, got out of debt, etc., 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 we're not going to be the ones left holding the bag. The first things that you're going to start seeing with all of this are restrictions on credit. It's going to be harder to get a loan. Credit card credit limits are going to start being reduced. Let's say, for example, you've got a $5,000 credit card limit, okay? And, you think you're being prudent and you only spent $1,500, so you stayed, under the 30%. But all of a sudden the credit card company goes, we're cutting your credit card limit to $2,000. You still owe that $1,500. Okay, guess what? You now have 80% credit usage. Or 75%, okay? And all of a sudden your credit score drops, and so now you can't do anything. You haven't done anything different, but somebody else said, chop. And all of a sudden now your score drops because you've used more of your available credit. And now you can't buy the stuff that keeps your lifestyle. This is everything that's going on. I've been up since 3:30 this morning, kind of seeing what was going to happen with the stock market this morning. Last night when the futures market opened at 6 o'clock last night, Dow futures were down $1,600, $1,700 right off the get-go. All right. Right now they're down $1,150. Okay. It was $1,200 when I started recording this. So we might be seeing a little bit recovery here. Do I think that we've hit a bottom? No. I think you might have a little bit of activity, but you've still got probably a couple of 100 points in the S&P. We may see one more significant drop day until we start getting into support. Okay. That 4,500 to 4,700 range, somewhere in there, that'll probably be a bottom on the S&P. Pre-market right now we're at 490. Okay. I'm sorry, 4,900. Yeah, we still got a while to go. This is why we prep. Because we don't have to worry as much about grocery prices going up because we can eat out of our pantries. We don't have to worry about our credit scores going down because we're not taking out loans. We don't have to worry about a lot of that. One of the benefits we get to see, oil prices are down, which means gas prices will soon be dropping. That's a boon to a lot of people, especially those of you that got to drive 100 miles round trip a day going back and forth to work. Okay. Saving you a few bucks there helps. But if you don't have to spend it at the gas station, and because of what we do, you don't have to spend it in the grocery store, and hopefully you don't have to spend it on car payments or house payments, or if anything, you've got it down. Certainly don't have to spend it on credit card bills. This is the time we have all said that we knew was coming, where we're just going to sit on the porch, sip a glass of iced tea, and watch the world crumble around us. It won't be the whole world, but you'll start seeing a whole lot of freak out in the country. Those of you that have been sitting around waiting for a chance to potentially move, buy a house, buy land, okay, good investments. Your opportunity may soon come because there's a whole lot of people who've been living up here who are going to finally come to the realization that they can't afford their house, they can't afford that piece of property that they're not doing anything with, and either they decide to get out or eventually the bank comes in and says, you haven't been making your payments for a few months. We're taking the house back. And then we get to see a fire sale. This is going to be a time that we all knew was coming, where cash is king. He who has the cash will be the king. There's going to be a lot of people desperate. Keep doing what you're doing. All that work that you have done, all those sacrifices you've made, the vacations that you have missed out on, the new car that you didn't buy, the toys that you didn't buy because you were putting stuff away for a rainy day. The thunder rolls. Pinball out.